Birds, couple things about our YouTube channel I want to share and remind y'all about. First of all, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We are slowly and steadily growing the channel toward 1,000 subscribers. That's a goal that we've been working at for a little while, and we're really close. The last unofficial number I saw was 994, and that's thanks to all of y'all supporting the channel with views and mainly subscribes. And we hope also that while you're watching the videos that you will give it some run time. Did you know that on YouTube a video has to run for 30 seconds plus for YouTube to count it as a watch, as a view? So at least let it run a little bit. We hope that you'll watch it all the way through. We try to give you a sense of what it's like producing chicken on a small, independent, family-run American farm. So we love for you to join us just to see that. But that is an interesting little fact about YouTube videos. So please, at least let it run 30 seconds if you're just screening it to see if it's one you want to watch. Also, please interact with it. Thumbs up button, give it a like, put something in the comments. And as I already said, please do subscribe. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers and hoping to get there. On that note, shout out to the most recent subscriber that we're aware of, and we're not always made aware of subscribers and their YouTube handles, but a most recent subscriber we do know because she commented and left us some feedback. Want to shout out a thank you to Nurse Judy in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing. So another thing about our channel is we are in the YouTube Partner Program, and we offer memberships. So under the video, there should be a join button. You can press that join button prompt. It brings up another screen that you can scroll through and has different categories and descriptions, and those are membership categories. And so when you choose to participate in that, it is purchasing a membership, and those memberships will help support our content projects for our YouTube channel, and will help support our on-farm projects like continuing to raise Cornish rock cross meat chickens and producing homegrown top quality poultry in that venture. We also raise a small flock of egg production chickens. So on our meat birds, to give a little scope of our operation, at least for this year, 2024, over 6 flocks in the calendar year of meat birds, we're producing about 1,650 meat chickens. So for us, for a household of 5 that just does this as a family-run operation, myself, my husband, and our 3 teenager young adult sons, it's a big undertaking to do that. Every flock is 5 or 6 weeks of production time, and there's quite a process involved in getting the chicks here, raising the chicks, getting the chickens to a processor, and direct marketing what we produce from the chickens. All of it involves a lot of work, a lot of sweat equity, just a lot of time, investing a lot of time, and of course investing a lot of money up front with all the expenses like for chicks, for feed, for supplies like these waters and feeders, electricity to power the barn. That includes lighting and includes targeted temperature control for ambient conditions to help the birds thrive, and freezers to keep the meat frozen that we produce from them. So that's kind of the scope of the meat bird operation. In 2023, I think we raised about 1,200 birds. We expanded a bit this year to 1,650 on the calendar. Those plans were all set by the first week of December 2023. All of our meat bird plans for all of 2024 were scheduled with hatchery and processor by with the processor, that's the first step, by the first week of December 2023, and with the hatchery shortly thereafter. So it's something that is set into motion a long time before we actually get to like the point where a flock moves in. And then for us, with direct marketing the flock, all of the flocks, we try to have the flocks at least 50% sold on reservations and pre-orders, the meat from the flocks, before we even start them, before we even get the chicks here. So there's a lot of working pieces involved in the machine of raising the meat chickens and marketing the poultry from them. So that's kind of the scope of the meat bird operation. The egg production operation, we have about 60 laying hens, and that's enough. But we are able to market the eggs from them, and generally we have a waiting list for eggs produced from our laying hens, and we do use a variety of breeds. The mainstay in our egg production right now is a hybrid called the Isa Brown, and I believe they were developed by a French company in the late 1970s, and we don't know exactly what breeds are in that hybrid, other than we're sure that Rhode Island Red is one of them, but they are excellent egg production birds. And those started laying eggs at about 4 months of age, actually. So, and they're 2.5 years old and still laying consistently and well. And then we try to cycle new hens into the egg production operation pretty much annually. And as the hens age to about 2.5 years old to 3 years old, then we try to rehome them into like backyard flocks so that they can produce eggs for a family. So that's kind of the scope of the egg production operation. And our main marketing technique with our egg production operation is egg subscriptions. So in other words, we sell 6 months supply of eggs at one time. That's based on a dozen a week to the same customer, and the customer will actually pay for 26 dozen, which would be about 6 months supply at 1 dozen a week. The customer will pay for 26 dozen up front, and then we'll guarantee to provide a dozen a week every week that customer wants eggs to them for the duration of their subscription. So if you're raising egg production chickens, that's a technique you could use if you want to see about kind of adding a strategy to your egg production sales. Conversely, if you're an egg consumer, you might be able to connect with a local farmer in your area that way. And even if they don't already offer subscriptions, if you are satisfied with their eggs and they'd be willing to do that, you could ask them, hey, could I get a subscription from you? And you could see if that's something you could work out. And you could offer to pay them ahead, and then you could see if they would be willing to guarantee you a dozen eggs a week for however long. And maybe as a, just trying it out, maybe you want to do it for 4 weeks or 8 weeks and see how that works. Because on the part of the farmer, the producer, there is, like we keep track of the subscription quantities for our customers, how many have been filled, how many are still due to them. And we also basically set their money aside that they paid ahead with, and take the money out of it each week for their egg subscription. So that way, that gives us reassurance that if some catastrophe befalls our egg production system and we are no longer able to fill dozens that our customers have paid for, we can immediately access the money to refund them if there's any dozens that we can't fulfill. So it's very important to us, that customer service side of it. So if you enter, as a consumer, if you enter into an egg subscription with somebody, you want to feel confident that that producer is going to make good on their promise to provide the dozens of eggs in the future up to the amount that you have been willing to pay for. So anyway, kind of there's different perspectives to look at that from, but let's get to the update on the stats, kind of more or less, on this flock, and then we'll wrap this one up and see you another day. But do consider a membership if you're watching our channel, and put your feedback in the comments if you have suggestions or questions. We do enjoy reading those. So the overview of this flock, I think I already said 428 Cornish rock cross meat chickens. We are saying they're 12 days old. So we call the day that they move in day 1 of production, and then we just count forward from there. So why am I wording it like we're saying day 12 of production? Well, we had something happen with this flock that I don't recall ever having had happen before. This flock had a really long lag in its shipping. So with chicks that you order from hatcheries, they ship them through the United States mail to customers here in the United States. You know, United States hatchery going to a United States customer. So in our case, it's around Cincinnati, Ohio, Southwest Ohio, that the hatchery is. It's Mount Healthy Hatchery, in fact, and we're having the chicks shipped to our part of the state of Ohio where we live, Southeast Ohio. So if you were driving it from where I live to the hatchery, straight shot, about 4 hours travel time, okay? Now, having these birds shipped and going through the postal service, we've generally been accustomed to, like, they'll leave the hatchery area like at 5:30 in the morning, and they'll be in our area by 2:30, 3 in the afternoon. That's what we've been accustomed to. So that's what we expected with this flock. This flock, there was some kind of lag in shipping. They made it about halfway through the transport process, about half the distance, to a post office that really is probably only about an hour away from us, hour and a half at the most. And then the route that would have come from there down to our area to a local post office isn't run anymore. So these chicks ended up sitting in that post office the rest of a day and overnight. So we are estimating that these chicks were probably in their shipping boxes, we're estimating probably 28 to 30 hours. And that's really not favorable. That's really not something we want to see happen to a flock. Mainly because my gravest concern is water. We want them to stay hydrated. So when they're in a shipping box that long, I'm really concerned about hydration. We're also concerned about getting food in them and nutrition. And we're also concerned about what were the ambient conditions around them, specifically ambient temperature. So those were our concerns once we realized that's what we were dealing with. But the way it unfolded, there wasn't anything we could do about it because we didn't know that the chicks were sitting in the post office, you know, like an hour and a half or so away. So as it turned out, they were supposed to be here July 24th, and they did ship July 24th, but they didn't arrive here until first thing in the morning, July 25th. So we are calling July 25th day 1. So today's day 12. So on their original arrival date, they are scheduled to be here 35 days. It would have been 35 days from July 24th to August 28th. So they would have had a 5-week production schedule, but you know, then that took a day away from it. So that could impact us slightly at the end of production. But with 35 days, so we're making chicken in 5 weeks. Okay, so typically we do raise them out to 6 weeks. But something we've learned is that you want to get your meat birds. So if y'all are going to raise meat birds, or you raise meat birds, kind of take this in and think it over, and you can kind of decide, you know, do you agree with me? Do you not? What do you think of this? But what we've observed and determined for ourselves, for our production system, is we want to get these birds just to the point of finish, where they're really well filled out, where they've converted feed to meat to the point that they're going to make about a 4-pound whole chicken for finished. Okay, so like once they're butchered and processed and in the freezer, or you know, being prepared for your table, we want about a 4-pound or 4.5-pound maximum chicken. Okay, so normally we raise them to about 6 weeks. Well, here's what we found at 6 weeks. We're going to get some 4.5-pound chickens, and we're going to get some a little lighter, but most of them are going to be 5.5 to 6 pounds. And a lot of our clients actually prefer a 4-pound whole chicken. So we're thinking, okay, well, if it's 6 weeks, we're ending up, after the birds are butchered and processed, we're ending up with these 6-pound whole chickens. What if we do 5 weeks? Okay, so that's one part of trying the 5-week production schedule. The other part is, as I was saying, the goal, we want to get these birds just to finish, and we want them going to the processor. We don't want them finished and then hanging out here a week, okay? On one hand, if they're finished and we're still feeding them like an extra week, we don't necessarily need to be doing that. We don't need that expense in the production operation. But that's not the main motivation. The main motivation is, with meat chickens, once you get them finished, their appetites still stay heavy and may even increase, but their rate of growth actually starts to level off. And so when meat birds are growing, working up to finish, their appetite is increasing, but their rate of growth is also increasing. And so you reach a point where you see that rate of growth actually level off. They're still growing, they're still going to get bigger, but it's going to level off. It's not going to be as rapid, okay? So the thing that happens when you reach that point with these meat chickens is you run into greater risk of their legs not maintaining strength to hold them up. And if you deal with birds that lose leg strength, they become immobile. They can easily dehydrate or malnourish simply because they now struggle to get to food and water if they lose mobility in their legs. So the other thing that can happen is that you can actually see finished Cornish rock cross meat chickens that are still kept in production like another week or two. You can see increased organ failure, particularly heart failure in those birds, okay? See how all these are resting? So they've been up, they've walked around, they've gone to eat, they've got a drink, they're gonna go rest again. That's their circadian rhythm. So at any rate, so when I was talking about you guys, that y'all that raise these birds or want to raise these birds, you can take this in and decide, do you agree with me or not? That's what I'm talking about. We want to find the threshold for success, which means we want to maximize the growth potential and minimize the flock loss. Okay, so the way that we want to do that is we want to manage our production length of our production system to the point that we get these birds just to finish and then they're going to the processor. And we want to avoid having finished birds that we're just keeping in production an extra week, okay? So judging by getting 6-pound chickens at finish, then those birds were finished enough sooner than we took them to processor, because we don't actually want 6-pound whole chickens here. Now, if you do want 6-pound whole chickens, you can raise the birds to 6 weeks or 7 weeks, okay? But we want a little smaller whole bird, like a 4.5-pound bird. So we want to go probably maybe to 5 weeks, but I'm thinking probably ideal would be 38 or 39 days. So we'll see how this flock turns out. But we want to get 4,000 pounds of feed into them. So that's another aspect of that. Maximizing growth potential and minimizing flock loss, kind of managing the feeding. And so we go by 10 pounds of feed per bird, and we let them have food all the time, 24/7, round the clock, start to finish. So hey, thanks for joining me. Gonna wrap this one up. We hope that y'all have a super week. Thanks for joining us. Please join us again, and may all your chicken dinners be winners.